right, welcome to Oregon Politics Live for June 26, 2026. I'll be talking about recent news articles that highlight issues facing Oregon and possible solutions and action steps. All right, so I got Trailblazers owner says taxpayers must cover entire Moda Center makeover. Data centers are receiving $450 million in Oregon tax breaks this year. Does anyone think that's a good idea? Politicians, teachers unions sue Hillsborough, Washington County over tax breaks to data centers. Prosperity Council likely to streamline state economic development agency. 6 Oregon cities have some of the highest alcohol-induced death in the nation for people 65 and over. Willamette Falls development project receives $4 million federal grant. All right, so these are the articles we're gonna go after today. So we'll start with this one. Trailblazers owner says taxpayers must cover the entire Moda Center makeover. Should I be bigger? You want me to be bigger? I can't really read the article, but whatever. Rough. Okay, so the old Trailblazers owner died, and then the wife ran it for a while, or maybe it's his sister, someone else. And then it finally sold to this guy who owns the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's basically been a giant cheapskate the entire time he's owned them, fired a bunch of workers, lowballing coaches, everyone. And so it says the new owner of the Trailblazers on Wednesday showed no interest in putting money toward the Moda Center's expected $600 million makeover, saying that simply keeping the NBA franchise in Portland was enough of a financial sacrifice. It feels like we're making a pretty big investment by staying here, Tom Dudden said, in front of the Portland Metro Chamber, the business group led by the aging city-owned arena. The remarks were the latest indication that the Texas billionaire expects taxpayers to foot the entire bill of a project deemed by proponents as essential to prevent the Blazers from leaving town. It also came as numerous Portland lawmakers on Wednesday made it clear that they want to see the franchise contribute a significant chunk of cash toward the arena renovation in exchange for city's own financial support. I'm going to have a hard time agreeing to give public money if I'm not seeing a private investment, said City Councilor Candace Avalos, echoing the remarks shared by many of her colleagues during a work session that unfolded while Dundon made his public appearance across the river at City Hall. Councilors used the 3-hour meeting to discuss other potential project terms or benefits they'd want to see in a final deal. Those include everything from union or family wage jobs for Moda Center workers to street pricing for arena concessions to a variety of revenue sharing options with the basketball franchise. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, it's all kind of a chicken and egg situation. So, Portland doesn't have any, or Oregon doesn't have any major, they don't have a baseball team, they don't have a football team. This is their professional basketball team. They don't have a professional hockey team. So of the 4 major sports, U.S. sports, they only have one, and they have the oldest arena in the NBA. So, yeah. So, you could say professional sports is it's a sense of pride or community building, or it could be an economic driver of sorts, put you on the map a little bit. But at the same time, they're asking for close to $1 billion from the various government agencies, from the state, from the county, from the city, to renovate the Moda Center. And as always, it's like, well, that money could be used for, education, some other thing that's not a giant sports facility. But at the same time, the city does own it, and if the Blazers leave, you're kind of stuck with a giant old dilapidated event center, and all downtown Portland is kind of slowly fading into obscurity and just kind of old and decrepit. So it seems like the owner of the Blazers probably wants Oregon to fail to come up with the money to redo the Moda Center. He could always just buy the Moda Center, and then he could own the building and renovate it as they want to, which might be a good idea, but they, who knows if they actually want to stay in Portland at all. Maybe they want to move to Seattle or another bigger city with more corporate sponsorships, because I think it says in here later that the Blazers are like the last in the league when it comes to corporate sponsorships, which I believe there's not a lot of big companies in Oregon. So yeah, I mean, if I was in their, if I was in like the leader's shoes, I would probably just renovate the Moda Center and lock in the Blazers into staying here for 20 years, because you kind of lose relevance as a city once you lose your professional sports teams. And I'd probably just suck it up, and then you still own the Moda Center and you can use it for lots of other events to take in revenue. And yeah, do the things that the city councilors are asking for, you know, proper wages, street pricing for concessions. That's not a bad thing to have a giant event center that's super nice in the middle of your city. Yeah, ideally the Blazers would chip in for it, but yeah. Anyway, but for me, it's like, it's very unclear that this guy actually wants to stay in Portland, and he's probably totally fine if they don't redo it, and then he can leave to a bigger market. So that is one that is definitely related to Oregon's economy. All right, then we got data centers are receiving $450 million in tax breaks this year. Does anyone think that's a good idea? All right, it says the tech industry is cashing in on an incentive program conceived in the 80s and 90s. The state is about to take a first look ever at whether it can get a better deal from data centers. All right, so Prineville was on the ropes when Facebook came knocking 20 years ago, and Prineville is it's out by Bend. It's like in the middle of nowhere. See where it is. It's there's Bend, there's Redmond, there's Prineville on the way out to John Day Fossil Beds National Monument. So that's where it is. All right. Unemployment was pushing 20%. 1 in 7 residents had moved away, hammered by the Great Recession and the precipitous decline of Oregon's timber economy. Okay, so local leaders made a bet offering the social media giant tens of millions in local tax breaks to put the first data center on the rise above Prineville. Officials hoped the wager would pay off with a few dozen jobs and fees Facebook would pay instead of taxes. Facebook grew beyond anyone's expectations. The company, which now calls itself Meta, eventually built 8 huge data centers in Prineville. Apple followed with 3 of their own. Okay. City manager Steve Forrester said the data centers brought hundreds of jobs to the city of 12,000 residents, so that's, you know, significant for them. And their fees help pay for freshly paved streets, new police station, new water system, and enabled Prineville to pay down their public pension debt, all without raising taxes, all without new taxes on residents. Incomes are rising faster there than anywhere else in the state. But if another company came to town asking for the same deal Facebook and Apple got, I don't know, I'd make that gamble. And this is from 2024. One county has the state's fastest growing incomes by far. It's Prineville. Nice. Nice. So it says Prineville Fire Center has moved its headquarters 30 miles down the road to Bend. Yeah, that's tough out there, no doubt. Okay, statewide data centers are receiving more than $450 million in local tax breaks from Oregon communities this year alone. That includes $118 million in Prineville. So if they were paying regular taxes like any other business, they would have paid $118 million more to Prineville than whatever deal they had. But maybe they never would have came at all without the deal, I guess, is the counterfactual. Maybe they never would have set up in Prineville unless they were getting such a sweetheart deal. Oregon's data center industry is already among the largest in the country, occupying almost 3,000 acres. Another 9,000 acres are in the planning stages. Okay. While technology workers tend to cluster in big cities like Seattle and San Francisco, data centers are usually in small towns, suburbs, and rural counties where there's ample land and there's not many people. But that's okay because the data centers usually don't have many workers. Okay. Oregon has plenty of small communities, abundant land, and most importantly, a tax structure that is especially appealing to the tech industry. Okay. So here is the map that we're showing. Washington County, which is Hillsborough, there's 600 acres of data centers, and they are paying, well, the tax breaks that they're given to QTS, which I don't know what that is, 24 million, CoreWeave 22 million, which is the ChatGPT sycophant, Digital Reality Trust 13 mil, so a whole bunch of stuff. Who is QTS anyway? This is the mobile digital infrastructure. Okay, so that's the one close to the Multnomah County has 3 acres, so basically nothing. Let's see. Coos Bay has 20 acres, but no incentives. Douglas County, 1 acre and no incentives. Eugene, 8 acres, no incentives. Deschutes County, 3 acres, no incentives. There's our boy, Prineville, where it's the point of the story, right? Where it's 500 acres and over 100 million in incentives. So, I mean, would these companies have chosen to come here without the incentives? Probably not, and then they just be a dead town. But had they paid the full freight, it would have been another 100 million. So, it's a tough decision. Wasco County, 54 million for Google. And then here's the biggest boy of all. Umatilla County, Amazon for 800 acres at 200 million, and Amazon again for 2,000 acres for another $200 million in tax incentives. Holy crap. So yeah, that's the big boy. Would Amazon have come here if they didn't give these incentives? Hard to know, right? All right. Okay, thanks to Oregon's generous incentive programs, data centers rarely pay anything close to full property taxes on their high-end computers. The world's wealthiest tech companies are exploiting Oregon's incentive programs designed to attract and retain large manufacturers in the 80s and 90s. Those companies employed hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of workers. But now it's a different thing, where they're just going to employ tens of people, maybe 100 people. So Amazon was the big boy, paying 46 million local taxes, but it's saving double that. Yeah. So obviously people are pissed about this because this is the reason. Except larger class sizes, delayed road projects, strained healthcare systems, rising utility costs. Yeah. So it's been a big problem for a while. And this teachers union and politicians are suing Washington County over the tax breaks given to the data center. So this one was this is what they're alleging. They approved 17 standard enterprise zone applications in a flurry in March and April, offering in some cases 25 years of back-to-back waivers for paying property taxes that would otherwise fund parks, schools, and public services. Yeah, so This is the one egregious case where a tech company, NTT, each incentive offers a 5-year property tax reprieve tied to the company's promise to build or add on to existing infrastructure in the next 2 decades, but without much detail about what they'll build, to what size, and to what degree it will spur job creation. Taken together, the company wouldn't need to pay any property taxes on parts of expanses until 2051. So they're sort of just like abusing the current rules to not pay taxes, basically. This is basically the reason why the state rep lost her primary and Tammy Carpenter won, because she was more against the data centers. So, and who's this NTT anyway? Well, good for them to get their sweet deal of paying no taxes. Ridiculous. Data centers are a hot button issue at the moment with, the AI industry in general sucking up so many billions of dollars of investments, and it's not even a profitable business. They don't make money, and it's not real artificial intelligence. It's just a large language model. So, I think the response to stop data centers and make them pay at least a fair amount of taxes is totally reasonable and appropriate. And the people doing AI should be forced to make a profit like any other business. And if they can't make a profit in their whole, then, sorry. Yeah. All right, now let's move on to this one. Prosperity Council to streamline state economic development agency. This is from the Oregon Journalism Project. The agency missed its job creation target 9 out of 10 years. The solution, a lower target. Okay. I'll look up this Nigel character. Amid a flagging economy, Tina Kotek's Prosperity Council is poised to rebuild when Governor Tina Kotek's Prosperity Council released its final report over the last week of June, it's almost certain the panel will recommend an overhaul of Business Oregon, the state's economic development agency. The reason isn't hard to find. Oregon business spends more than $1 billion a year on everything from funding regional theater groups to tax breaks for multinational corporations such as Intel, Amazon, Facebook, Google. Its stated mission is to promote a globally competitive, diverse, and inclusive economy. But by a basic measure, jobs created, it has failed that mission 9 of the past 10 years, often by wide margins. The response to that record lowered the target. As a result, agency cleared its goal last year by 8 jobs. So here's the chart where it's like this is the target of jobs they're trying to create. 2,000, and they usually miss their target. And I think this is not like jobs that all of Oregon created. It's just jobs that they can directly tie to their programs, I believe. But they're basically saying that the person who is running the organization, Sofran Chang, she was appointed by Kate Brown in 2021. Before that, she was the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and she's been running for 5 years. So people are basically saying, what business experience does this person have? Maybe there needs to be a change in the agency. So we'll see what the Prosperity Council's recommendation ends up being. Wow, it's a big one for, this represents the state's attempt at encouraging business. All right, 6 Oregon counties have some of the highest rates of alcohol-induced death. of age 65 and older. So this is the whole country, the places with alcohol-related deaths over the last 5 years. We've got Arcata is number 1, followed by Roseburg, and then Redding, California, then Eugene and Medford, Reno. It's interesting. It's all sort of the same area. The top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The top 6 are all the top, and I mean, it could be that it's more super depressing there in Northern California, Southern Oregon, or maybe there's just not a lot of access to healthcare, maybe, or it's cheap alcohol, maybe. I know in Oregon that's the case with no sales tax, but it's the same about California. And then we got 1 in Wisconsin, then we got Arizona, which is it's like Indian reservation, Salem, Spokane, Bend. It seems like the West Coast is really heavy drinkers, or maybe they don't have access to healthcare. Hard to know, but it's not great. Not great. All right, and the last article of the day is this Willamette Falls development project. The redevelopment of Willamette Falls has received a fresh injection of public funding. On Wednesday, the EPA awarded $250 million in funding for 193 projects. And the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde received $4 million for its continued evolution of the old Blue Heron paper mill at Willamette Falls. The tribe has slowly been taking down the old mill on the Oregon City side of Willamette Falls, planning its own development in its place. The tribe's plan to Moda Village is expected to bring housing, a hotel, retail, and office space to the former industrial complex, along with natural areas accessible to the public. The project is expected to take decades to fully realize. Yep, so this is a great thing that can turn the Willamette Falls into, a spot for economic development is a good thing, so I'm very happy to see that. Yeah, back when I was running for office in District 51, my face so big, so awkward. This one, it could be the Willamette Falls of the West. So this is like an amazing waterfall. It's the second largest waterfall by volume in the United States, and it's like surrounded by nasty industrial wasteland. So if the Grand Ronde can successfully develop the area to a tourist attraction, that's could be a major economic boom for the area. So happy to see that. And that concludes the roundup for June 26, 2026. Yeah, I guess it's the Moda Center fight, it's the data center issues, and the Prosperity Council's recommendation if anything will change because of that. I am happy to see economic development stuff working with the trout route and Willamette Falls. Those are both good things. Anyway, till next time, take care.